as you start to utilize the architectural features that's part of Visual Studio 2010, one of the screens you're going to become intimately familiar with is the Architectural Explorer. The Architectural Explorer allows you to do many things, but one of the things it allows you to do is take a look at your solution from the top down. So I can choose Solution View, and it'll present me with the list of all the projects that are in my solution. So if I go ahead and click, I don't know, Domain, you'll see the various class files that are in there. So let's go ahead and click Episode, and then you'll show me the types that are in the episode class. There's 2 of them. If I click Episode, it'll show me the members that are in my type. And I can even go as far as telling me who calls into me, or what calls I have. So this is a pretty cool little way to traverse your architecture in your code base. So whenever we want to create a new layer diagram, what we need to do is go up to Architecture, New Diagram. You'll be presented with a new diagram dialog. We want to choose Layer Diagram. And for our scenario here, we're going to call this Dimecast Layers. Now I already have a model project that's part of my solution, but if you don't, you can go ahead and create one here. I'm going to go ahead and utilize the one I have. Now once it's done generating the template for it, you have 3 options. You can drag things from the toolbox. If I go over to the toolbox here, you'll see that I can create a layer, dependencies, and if I wanted to just drop a few layers on, I could drop them one by one, and I could give them names. And then I could even set up a dependency between them. So I'll select this one and it'll go to that one. And I could wire this up that way. But what we want to do here is take a look at how we can generate our dependency diagram from our current code base, and then use that diagram to enforce architectural constraints over time. So let me go ahead and delete this. So I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop a few of our assemblies up here. I'm not going to worry too much about the layout, because I'll take care of that here in a second. And once I've dragged all my projects on that I want to deal with, I can right click and tell it to generate my dependencies. And what this is going to do is it's going to inspect my code based on what I've dropped onto my diagram and set up all my references for me. So there you have it. It's set up all my dependencies for me and told me that my web GUI now references web, and web references contracts, and contracts is consumed by domain. So it's set up all my dependencies for me just the way I want. So this is great. This is the way my architecture sits today. Now today this diagram provides value only in allowing me to see how everything's arranged. But tomorrow it can provide value by allowing me to enforce what I designed today. So let's pretend Joe Developer comes along and makes a change to our code base. He doesn't truly understand how things should work. So he goes ahead and creates a direct reference from the web layer all the way into my domain layer, bypassing my services facade and the whole 9 yards. Well, everything works because I'm all in the same code base, and he's allowed to add a domain reference. No one's really stopping him. Nothing concrete is stopping him, at least. And maybe this has even gotten through a code review of some sort. Well, the good news is having some kind of infrastructure like this, where you can validate yesterday's design concepts against today's implementation, will allow me to catch some of these violations. How do I go about doing that? Well, pretty easy. Right click, validate architecture. It's now going to reevaluate all of your code based off of what you have set in stone, if you will, on your diagram that you created, weeks or months ago, against the actual living, breathing entity that is your code today. Because we all know the only real document of your code is your code itself. Anything I design and draw up in UML within Visio or Word or whatever becomes out of date the minute I hit save. But having the ability to create your diagrams inside of Visual Studio changes that immensely. So here it's done doing my validation, and you can see that I have a dependency violation. It tells me that my web controllers has direct knowledge of my impl.iepisodes type. And it even goes down here and tells me that my web assembly has direct knowledge of my domain assembly. That's probably pretty bad. And if I was to redraw this dependency diagram from scratch, it would actually now draw me a link between these two things. I don't want that. So you can see how this will allow me to enforce this. So now, if in a real scenario, I'd probably come along and say, okay, it's time to break this reference, and we need to reevaluate our code somehow. Make those changes. Maybe we rerouted it. Maybe now the developer's gone through the right channels. He's created WCF service. Oh, let's go ahead and, almost forgot, go and delete our assembly reference to it. Let's try recompiling this all over again. So now my architectural validation is completed again. And you'll see I have no errors in my error window. And in the output, it looks like I have no violations. So, voila. I've coded badly. I've done some validation against my existing static structure. I found a violation. I then fixed the violation somehow, right? In our scenario, it's simply deleting the code, but in the real world, it'd be rerouting the code, if you will. And then I've revalidated my application. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple, but very, very, very powerful. The architecture of your application is the foundation of it. If you let the foundation start to crack and crumble, and if you let all the quick workarounds and the deadline things that got in right at the deadline, the pushes and the shoves that got right in at the deadline, if you allow those to manifest and build up over time, your foundation's going to crumble. And eventually you're going to fall apart. Having tools like this layer diagram will help you prevent that from happening. So I hope you learned something. Until next time.